We humans feel small when confronted by the massive forces and processes of winter. The cold, the darkness, and the weight of ice and snow. Winter is powerful and can be merciless, take a hold on us, even threatening our very lives. Winter shapes our lives in more ways than we are aware of. The way we dress, the way we move, the way we think, yes, even who we are. Those of us who live in northern regions with severe winters try to adapt, and with Snowhow, knowledge, and experience gathered through generations, we have found ways to survive. In this series, we will see what winter has done to us and meet people who adapt to winter's demands.
110%.
But what does winter really consist of? And what do we do when winter puts us to the test? Snow can have a raw power. A power we have no control over. A devastating power that can kill.
Ganska direkt så sa vi någonting om att det går en lavin. Händer det här mig? Är det så här vi ska dö nu båda två? Hej Mattias! Vi har sett en till lavin på Kaskasapakte.
Jenny Råghull is an avalanche expert at Kebnekaise mountain station. She gives advice to people who want to go skiing. Mountain safety has become a very important issue for Jenny.
Det är därför jag jobbar egentligen, för att kunna påverka, för att det är så svårt. Det är så många, och även jag själv har ju tänkt att det här är aldrig någonting som kan hända mig. Men det är just det. Laviner kan hända just dig som är skidåkare eller skoteråkare.
Today, Jenny is going into an avalanche-prone area with Thomas Winberg. Thomas is new to avalanche warning and wants to learn more about reading the danger signals the snow gives.
Ja, men vi kör.
Ja, då drar vi.
It's snowed and been windy in the Tarfala Valley lately, but Jenny and Thomas still consider it safe to enter the area. To be able to give good avalanche warnings, they have to obtain detailed information about snow conditions. They're looking for a good place to dig out a snow profile.
Ser du alltså vad fältet där bredvid? Det är en liten triangel, kolla.
Jenny knows all about the power of snow. In 2012, she was 23 years old and a new employee at a ski resort in Tendalen. The resort had been closed a few days due to storms with strong winds and heavy snow. Together with friend and colleague Jocke Nyberg, she went out to check the avalanche danger in some hills nearby. That's just when the avalanche started.
När lavinen startade så dels kändes det ju att marken som, eller ja, snön som jag stod på började röra sig. Och sen så ser jag ju också sprickbildningar åt alla håll och kanter.
Det var igår eftermiddag som lavinen gick, bara 50 meter ifrån backen.
An avalanche can start on a slope low in a valley or from steeper ground further up. And an avalanche can travel at great speed, several hundred kilometers per hour. And where it meets resistance, the snow can compact itself into an ice-cold concrete wall. Jenny and Thomas both have shovels in their backpacks and avalanche beacons attached to their bodies, and they have avalanche probes. When Jenny and Jocke were caught by the avalanche in 2012, they didn't take any safety equipment with them. It had been 40 years since the last big avalanche in this area. At the resort, most people had become used to the notion of this being a safe area. Suddenly, Jocke and Jenny were caught in an avalanche. They were dragged down the hill between huge blocks of snow, which were moving with great force.
Då vi hade åkt en bit ner i skogen så blev det flackare och flackare och då stannar lavinen av. När den gör det så trycks all snö ihop mot oss, mot kropparna och i sig själv. Det känns jättetydligt för att det blir som ett enormt tryck över hela kroppen, över bröstet, över allt. Det bara pressas mot den.
Jenny was stuck, but she got one arm free and managed to get the snow off her face, providing her with air. She was able to notify people at the resort she was working at through a radio she was wearing. Jocke was nowhere to be seen.
Klockan 11:10. Vi är på 1300.
Together with Thomas, Jenny has found a good place to dig for a snow profile. In sloping terrain, it's a little easier to get rid of the snow they have to dig away. It's also in this sort of terrain you find the greatest danger of avalanches. Statistics show that if you are found within 15 minutes of being taken by an avalanche, 9 out of 10 people survive, but the odds decrease rapidly. After 2 hours under the snow, only 3 out of 100 survive. Jocke had not been carrying an avalanche transcriber, and it took time to find him.
Han låg ungefär 7 meter från mig. Då hade det gått över 30 minuter. Och han var inte så djupt begravd. Kanske 70-80 centimeter. Men när man fick upp honom så var han var livlös. Ambulansen kom på plats precis när de grävde upp honom. Här är ju isskaren, Thomas. Här är ju egentligen då 20 december skaren. Den är väldigt djupt ner. Den är ju ren is också. Ja. Så att jag trycker och då får jag ju, beroende på hur hårt jag kan trycka, så ser man ju lagren ganska tydligt.
The shape of the snow crystals says a lot about their ability to bind to the snow layers above them and below them. If they bind poorly, the chance of a snow slide or an avalanche increases. But weather and wind are also important factors. The avalanche in Tänndalen had followed a period when there had been large amounts of wind-driven and heavy snow.
Förstämning i Tänndalen idag. För i morse kom beskedet att en pistör som igår drogs med i en lavin i Tänndalen avlidit.
Ja, idag flaggar man på halvstång här i Tänndalen. Och liften närmast olycksplatsen står stilla nu när man utreder olyckan. Det var igår eftermiddag som lavinen gick, bara 50 meter ifrån backen.
8,3 minus.
Ja, det är fortfarande kallare längre ner.
Ja.
Okej, då vill jag ha Kristalltyp och storlek på 0 till 2 lagret och ytan då.
If snow crystals are round with solid edges, it's a sign of stable snow. Large, spread-out crystals, on the other hand, don't bind together well and can collapse more easily. For Jenny, working for safety in the mountains has become a mission.
Jag har svårt att göra ett dåligt jobb med snö, för att då vet jag, eller ja, jag måste kunna känna mig nöjd i mig själv i att jag gör så bra jag kan. Och kommer du ihåg den här regeln med, alltså facetter är ofta större än 1 millimeter och är det något annat så är de ganska små ofta.
Ja, de är nog runda de där.
Jenny loves being in the mountains, and she wants others to experience this amazing feeling. That's why it's so important to gather knowledge about snow and what it can do.
Det finns ju inget bättre än snöklädda vita berg alls. Det är ju det finaste som finns. Men man måste också väga det mot risken det ändå innebär att vara ute.
Winter is dangerous, especially when there's too much of it. Houses, for example, can collapse under the weight of snow if it isn't cleared away in time. And ice along roofs and cliffs can quickly become a death trap if not removed. We put up barriers against snow where we think they can help. Here in Hammerfest, millions have been invested in protection barriers against stone, ice and snow. This means the town's residents can sleep a little safer at night. In spite of such safety measures, in Norway and Sweden, 80 people have died in avalanches over the last 10 years. In the same period, over 140 people in Finland have gone through the ice and drowned. And then there are all the minor accidents that winter brings when the pavements and paths are not de-iced or salted. Arms, legs, ankles and hips. And even the toughest of us can encounter problems and need help.
Akta dig, isen är svag där ute. Jag är trött.
Yes. Skönt.
Winter here in the Nordic region doesn't only offer cold, ice and large amounts of snow. Above all, it offers plenty of darkness. Long nights and short days. Perfect for those who want to give themselves a little challenge. You can't sit inside all night.
Skaven gir en veldig lun og fin følelse, altså. Og spesielt det når den er ute etter mørkets frambrudd, så forsterker det hele greia litt der. Han får mye fine silhuetter i trea, og kanskje en liten bonus som litt nordlys eller en fullmåne. Det er utrolig fint, altså. Rett og slett.
For modern urban society to function through a snowy winter, great resources are required. In Helsinki, they certainly take winter seriously. A few centimeters of snow could cripple all traffic, but the city has resources ready to tackle the problem.
Pesuhallissa 30404, ota se, missä on ne uudet renkaat.
One of these teams is headed by Heikki Koivisto.
7 päivänä aamusta iltaa, tai yöt ja päivät, sanotaan niin. Se on niin kuin lähempänä sitä totuutta.
Tractors and snowmobiles are waiting. It costs Helsinki a lot to have a large equipment hall prepared and ready, but it costs more to let the city snow in. In Helsinki, there are 4,250 streets with a total distance of over 1,100 kilometers. Heikki and his crew are responsible for one of the city's inner zones. And now it has started to snow. At 2 in the morning, they start the first part of their job. The advantage of snow ploughing at night is that there's a lot less traffic. But the snowplows can't be everywhere. The main streets are prioritized. The side streets have to wait until later. When daylight returns, it has stopped snowing. People notice that it has been snowing, but most of them manage to get to where they need to be, because the traffic flows normally in the main streets. For Heikki's team, the job has just started. It snowed only 15 centimeters this night, but when the whole city is covered, it adds up to a lot of cubic meters of snow. For the city to function, the snow must be removed quickly and efficiently. Helsinki has invested in reception facilities and pools to clean the snow. Outside the city, there are large landfills where the snow mountains grow for every day it snows. When capacity has reached its limit, the sea becomes a last resort for getting rid of the snow. Not exactly an optimal solution in terms of the environment, but at least it gives the crew on the vessel Carmel a job. They sail in a circle 24 hours a day. 400 laps every day and night throughout the winter to create circulation in the harbour basin. But the main job takes place on land. It'll take several weeks to get rid of all the snow that fell last night. During the winter, 50,000 loads of snow will be leaving Helsinki. That's equal to one truck covering 1 million kilometers. This corresponds to the distance of a round trip from Helsinki to Kirkenes and back 370 times. Helsinki spends about 25 million euros on snow removal. And spring is far, far away.
Mutta sitten ensi viikolla taas on toinen porukka tekemässä tätä samaa hommaa ja sitten seuraavalla viikolla tullaan me taas ja sillä se jatkuu kevääseen asti.
Snow and ice are among the things that make winter so different. But what is snow and what is ice? And what properties do they have? They know quite a bit about this at the Snow Lab at NTNU in Trondheim.
Hvor galt er det nå her?
Det er 20 minus her nå.
Nei, men det er perfekt for å lage snø.
The scientists here make winter as required. It's all done in a controlled environment. Alex is going to make snow, to look at the structure of crystals that form at minus 20 degrees Celsius during a light breeze.
Jeg kobler på vindtunnelen.
Janne has brought a piece of road surface. Her aim is to find out more about what kind of frost forms where the surface is cold, but when the air is warm and humid. This is important for road safety.
Hvilken temperatur skal du kjøre nå?
Det er minus 5 på steinen og rundt pluss 1-2 i lufta.
Ja.
The wind machine produces a light wintry breeze, so now it's just a question of letting it freeze for a while. In fact, winter has a lot to do with water. Water in various disguises. In gaseous form as water vapor, in liquid form in lakes and rivers, and in solid form as ice or snow. Strict physical rules determine both form and properties. Unlike most other substances, water expands as it goes from liquid to solid. Ice takes up 9% more space than water and is lighter than water. That's why huge icebergs can float in the ocean. The fact that water expands when it freezes is easy to demonstrate. Here in Alex's lab, we have minus 20 degrees Celsius. What happens to a plastic petri dish filled to the brim with water? The ice crystals appear, looking rather like pine needles and branches. The bubbles are air that is separated from the water when it freezes. And then it just happens. The ice bursts out of the bowl. This force is strong enough to move both rock and mountains. We have to go down to the molecular level to understand what's happening. In a drop of water, there are millions of molecules floating around freely. Each molecule is composed of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. When water freezes, the molecules must align in a hexagonal and slightly airy but solid grid pattern. Then, water has turned into ice. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. We all know that, but it's not always true. Up in the air, drops of perfectly clean water can sometimes have a temperature of minus 40 degrees Celsius or below without freezing. But as soon as the water comes into contact with something hard, it freezes in no time. This explains the phenomenon of freezing rain, a familiar problem on the roads in winter. It's as if the molecules in the freezing rain need to be told how they should behave in the cold weather.
Her må dere over se, Janne. Underkylt vann som vi fryser. Og så skal jeg røre det med en iskrystall, så starter fryseprosessen. Der.
Wow, oi, stilig.
Kult, ikke sant?
Ja.
Så skyter disse krystallene rett gjennom dråpet, fordi den er underkjølt.
Det er kult.
Something similar happens when it snows. When supercooled water droplets collide with small dust particles in the air, the water will freeze. The snow crystals are like letters from heaven. They each tell their story of temperature and pressure and humidity in the air where they came into being. Most have a basic hexagonal structure, but there are major differences. If it's cold and dry, and between minus 12 to 15 degrees Celsius, the crystals become star-shaped. Between 8 and 12 minus, they become more plate-shaped. As it gets milder and wetter, many other forms can occur, depending on the weather and the wind. Rime ice has a different origin. It consists of ice crystals that are formed directly from water vapor without being made into liquid water. You can see it best on straws and twigs outdoors. But sometimes rime ice forms on roads. The local winter conditions in Janne's test box have made this road extremely icy.
Ja, vi har fått masse rim.
Ja, og der er det litt mer sånn plate.
Ja.
Men her er det veldig tett struktur i hvert fall. Det er mye tettere enn det vi så på minus 15.
Spennende å se hvor fast det sitter da.
Vi får se på pendelen.
A test with this pendulum can tell you how much pressure crystals formed under this particular weather regime will withstand. For example, on meeting a car tire. This is useful information for people working to make our roads safer.
Tok bort bare det øverste løse. Det ser ut som det sitter fast. Så vi må ha noen kjemikalier for å få vekk det.
Ja, jeg er enig.
In Alex's snow fridge, there's an entirely different form of winter. The grid has served as a frame for crystal growth and crystal branching. And then a terrible snowstorm begins.
Det er veldig fine, store dendriter.
Luftig.
The snow that Alex has made in minus 20 degrees Celsius has long crystal arms. This is because the humidity in the air under such temperature conditions clings to the ends of the branches where it can freeze firmly. This is very different from the densely built crystals in the frost that Janne produced. All ice and snow consists of crystals formed by water. But the crystals appear in many different forms and with varied properties, governed by physical laws and influenced by the conditions in which they were created. Knowing about this is important for anyone living in a winter landscape. It's not a myth that there are hundreds of words for snow in the Sami language. There are words for snow with such prickly ice crystals that the reindeer get sore claws. There are words for hard wind-driven snow, for snow in northern slopes, for snow that forms bridges over streams, and for hard-crusted snow that will melt in the sun. Important nuances for those who live close to the snow. Everyone living here must adapt to winter conditions and the opportunities the snow and ice offer. The mountain hare and the willow ptarmigan have chosen to mimic winter. The camouflage technique means that there is less chance of being discovered by someone with bad intentions. Other species that lack the ability to change their clothes, for example, can just hide. Then you have the icy water swimmers. The white-throated dipper is an excellent example. The trick the white-throated dipper uses is to lubricate itself with grease so that the cold water runs off. It requires a lot of energy, but the reward is a large amount of food that others can't get to. Everyone living up here north has to take special steps to hold on to warmth. If you remove the lid of a beehive during winter, you'll see that the bees have gathered around the queen. She must not be cold. Although it's minus 10 degrees outside, the bees manage to raise the temperature inside the hive to a comfortable 25 degrees, or even more when they need it. Their trick is to fan their wings. The movements of the wing muscles cause the body temperature to increase, and thus the temperature inside the hive also increases. The bees that are furthest away from the queen are the coldest, but they all continuously change places. That way, most bees survive. One of the most important properties of snow is its ability to insulate against the wind and the cold. Until the last century, igloos were still used as homes by some people in Greenland. And when water freezes, new opportunities and new hunting grounds arise. All over the Nordic region and throughout history, winter has made it possible to get to places which in other seasons are cut off. During World War II, emergency aid was transported on the ice over Kvarken, between Umeå in Sweden and Vasa in Finland. And as late as 1966, the weather was sufficiently cold and the mood of local folk sufficiently warm for them to use the same route to drive to dances in each other's countries. It shouldn't take more than about 20 centimeters of ice to support a small passenger car. But what about a fully loaded timber truck? This vehicle weighs 27 tons, unloaded. Each year, over 70 million cubic meters of timber are extracted from the forests of Finland. But some areas are difficult to access, such as the islands of Lake Kiantajärvi. It's not the distance that's the problem. It's only 300 meters to the shore of the lake from the island. But when big trucks are out on the ice, planning is crucial.
Tähän tuli muutoksia tähän talvitiehen.
Sitten se jäätie joudutaan pikkusen siirtämään tänne kauemmas tästä, että tuo matalikko niin ei kallista sitä jäätietä sitten, kun vesi laskee alemmas.
Kyllä.
Toivottavasti vaan tulee pakkasempi talvi, kun viime talvena ei pystytty tekemään.
Joulukuulla johonkin aikaan.
Ilmari Taurian is responsible for the ice road on this lake and for the safety of the drivers. If he is to succeed, he has to play along with winter.
Tässä järvellä niin lumi liikkuu kovasti kovalla tuulella, niin se aiheuttaa ongelmia sitten.
Winter begins okay. Stable, cold weather for several weeks provides a good starting point, but it's still not enough. Now Ilmari and his team must get going.
Niin, joku Pekka veivako se vanha pilikkimies. Älä porskuta, kun kalat säkä. Niin.
Now they have to pump water on the ice. Water freezes quickly when it's on top of the ice. If they do it right, they can add up to 4 or 5 centimeters of ice a day. But then they have to work at it day and night. The winter cold does a good job, but sometimes it can be a little too much. When the temperature drops below minus 30 degrees Celsius, a blowtorch must be used to defrost the tractor's water pumps. They don't exactly fight the clock, but they need to have the road ready well before the winter turns into spring. Eight weeks after the work began, Ilmari can measure the thickness of the ice. 1 meter and 10 centimeters. It's getting close, but he is still not convinced. He'd like a few additional centimeters. The timber is ready to be moved. The true test comes with the big trailers.
Eli tämän kirkkaan keskiossaan mennään. Tässä se on jäävytetty ihan näitä aurausviittoja myöten, mutta tässä on...
The ice is 120 centimeters thick now. The trailer weighs 27 tons without a load. It's water he's going to drive on. Water molecules that the cold has forced into a solid grid pattern. But will it hold? Seppo, the driver, doesn't load the trailer full for the trial run. He stops loading at 50 tons. He thinks that's enough. The stretch they need to cross is only 300 meters long, but even so, anything can happen. Seppo opens the window so he can listen for signals from the ice. And so if something goes wrong, he can get out quickly. He maintains a speed of 15 kilometers per hour. Higher speed can induce waves in the unfrozen water below the ice, which can cause the ice to crack. Stopping can be extremely dangerous. When he first gets started, he has to drive the entire stretch. The first load of timber has made it across. Ilmari can finally relax. Now, 199 trips with the trailer remain before spring takes over and the ice road disappears. Snowhow, the ability to take advantage of the opportunities that winter offers, has always played an important role in the Nordic countries, and in more ways than we usually think about. National self-assertion, for example. Scientists and adventurers from Nordic countries were pioneers when it came to exploring the Arctic and the Antarctic. The snow and ice of these regions became an important arena in which small countries could make a mark on the international scene. In military history, too, the winter skills of Nordic soldiers have been important, although not always decisive for the outcome. Winter itself has played a significant political role in the power struggle between the Nordic countries. This is the political map of the Nordic countries today. It hasn't always looked like this. We have to go back to 1657, to the middle of what is often called the Little Ice Age. Europe is at war. King Carl X, Gustav of Sweden, is on the offensive in Poland. Frederick III of Denmark and Norway takes a chance and declares war on Sweden. Perhaps he shouldn't have done that. In Poland, the Swedish army starts moving and heads for Denmark. Meeting hardly any resistance, they take control of large parts of Jutland. If they are to win the war, they must move to the island of Zealand quickly. They can't get there by ship, but winter opens up for other solutions. Towards the end of January 1658, the army gathers outside Hales on the Little Belt. From here it's 10 kilometers across to Funen. Because Finland is under the authority of Sweden, the army consists of both Swedish and Finnish soldiers. On the morning of January the 30th, the army moves forward, and several thousand soldiers start crossing the ice. They are met by artillery fire from the Danish army, but the cannonballs have little effect. Most of the soldiers cross unharmed, and the Danes give up the defense of Funen. Now the Swedish army advances further and chooses a route through Langeland. From here it's 12 kilometers across the Great Belt to Lolland, the last great obstacle before Zealand. Today, the Great Belt is ice-free midwinter. The Langeland ferry takes 45 minutes to cross at a speed of 16 knots. In the winter of 1658, there was no ferry, but it was bitterly cold. The Swedes are in doubt. Will the ice hold while they cross the Great Belt? Soldiers with horses and sleds and weapons, a distance of 12 kilometers. After another night of biting cold weather, a signal to advance is given. On February the 6th, 1658, the army moves forward. The ice seems to be shaking. There's water on it and it's slushy. But again, the soldiers come over with minimal loss. Now there's nothing that can stop the Swedish army. It's a humiliating defeat for King Frederick of Denmark and Norway. After peace talks in Roskilde, Denmark has to relinquish Haaland, Skåne and Blekinge. Norway loses Bohuslän, and for a short period, Sweden also rules over part of central Norway and Bornholm. But the losses along the coast to the south remain. The winter cold in 1658 changed the political map of the Nordic countries forever. It's midwinter and cold. For several weeks, the temperature has been around minus 20 degrees Celsius. Even so, they are operating as usual at the harbour in Karleby. But the situation is difficult when it comes to the ice. Freight vessels can be locked in. Then it helps that Otso is nearby, one of the Baltic Sea's faithful helpers. Finland is one of the very few countries in the world that has to expect that every one of its ports will be closed by ice. During the 1960s, Finnish politicians realized that northern Finland needed industry, and that this industry needed open ports. Today, Karleby is Finland's third largest port. Without a large publicly funded fleet of icebreakers, this would be impossible. Otso is one of 12 Finnish and Swedish icebreakers that patrol the Baltic every winter. They collaborate across national borders as a matter of course. The crew on Otso works in shifts. 6 hours of work, 6 hours of food and rest, and then back to work, around the clock through the entire winter. There's always someone who needs assistance.
Niin, no ei se näköjään paljon auta. Siellä on massaa niin paljon tuolla ylhäällä. Se tekee nyt tällä hetkellä mallia oikein tosissaan sinne, että se liikkuu solmuun alaspäin sieltä.
Winters are cold in the Baltic Sea. Some years the ice cover reaches the south of Gotland, but in recent winters the ice cover has moved further north. However, impenetrable drift ice can still accumulate.
Eli tällä hetkellähän täällä Eteläperämerellä, missä me ollaan jo alueella, niin täällä on Fennica ja Otso, ja tällä hetkellä ruotsalaisista Uuden on tässä auttamassa. Eli niillä 3 murtajalla säädellään resursseja niin, että laivat liikkuu mahdollisimman hyvin.
And now the cargo ship Isis has asked for help.
Isis, do you have full ahead? 110%, because it doesn't look like it.
Yes, sir, we had the maximum speed.
Okay.
They can't move. Before Otso can help, they need to get a full overview of the situation. The cold winters and the ice in the Baltic Sea prompted Finland and Sweden to develop icebreaker technology early on. And these powerful vessels caught quite a lot of attention. Today, Finland is a world leader in the design and construction of icebreakers. The most modern ships go at a speed of 6 knots in ice that is more than 1 meter thick. Otso is not among the newest, but it is doing a great job. The ship has compressors that blow out 10,000 litres of air per second underwater. The air breaks up the ice and reduces friction along the ship's side. Otso also has large water tanks that can be regulated so that the ship can tilt controllably from side to side. That way, it becomes possible to make a wider channel in the ice.
Isis replied.
Yes, stand by this channel. I will come and cut your loose.
Okay, roger that. Stand by 06.
Yes, thanks.
The solution for getting Isis free is to go as close towards the ship's side as possible and attempt to break the ice around the vessel.
Okay, Isis, try to come a little bit forward.
Big try to come a little bit forward, okay.
Now follow me.
Follow you.
Ships operating here have to be able to handle ice. But the crews often lack experience when it comes to operating during winter conditions.
Heillä voi olla käsitys, että pitää mennä varovasti, niin silloinhan se laiva jämähtää siihen heti. Ja sitten ehkä oletetaan myös sitä, että kun tullaan jäihin, niin myös jäänmurtaja tulee heti avustamaan.
The small vessels can easily be towed, but the larger bulk carriers loading here are often wider than the icebreakers. In that case, it can be a difficult job.
No problem.
The cargo ships are fully loaded at Karleby. There should be no more problems. Otso has crushed the ice and created a channel to the main waterway. Industry in northern Finland can deliver its goods. The long winter nights here in the Nordic region quickly become a part of our identity. Cold, clear, and dark evenings. For many, these evenings are full of those special, cozy things you can do with family and friends in winter. It doesn't take more than a torch and an axe.
Nästan startar med den där.
It's gas from rotten plants that burns. Methane gas leaking from the mud at the bottom. Kept trapped under the ice and released by the chop of an axe. The Nordic winter is powerful. It can threaten us and also open up for new opportunities. And we, our bodies, our culture, adapt as best we can. But then it turns out that from winter darkness, light and life gradually return and grow.